The Katana by Ryan Kirby. I can hear the sound of a Japanese katana, the curved blade of the sword slowly sliding out of its sheath. I can feel the weight of the perfectly balanced blade of death slowly slicing through the air. I can hear the scream of the girl I cut with it. I can hear the scream of my mom when she saw the blood. I can hear the screams of her mom when she saw the blood, the screams of everybody who saw what I did. The day I found the katana, hidden away from me until I got older, was replaced by a day of screaming. My uncle was a man of mysteries. My dad never talked about him, and whenever he came over, they seemed distant. My uncle had a drug problem and wasn't a good person. I always remembered him as a good person, though. He would help me build stuff in my sandbox, I would play basketball with him, and he would teach me cool things he's learned. I loved my uncle growing up, and I always looked forward to seeing him. I never knew the truth, though. My parents didn't want to hurt me. They couldn't tell me who he really was. I remember my uncle coming in and out of my life, but never knew why. Now I know the truth. My uncle was addicted to drugs and made terrible choices. He did terrible things to the people around him, including family. My uncle didn't care about who he hurt, he only cared about getting the next fix. My parents knew I couldn't handle the truth, so they didn't tell me until I was older. The last time he went to jail was 6 years ago. He was supposed to get out when I turned 16, but now he won't see the outside world until he's almost 80. Now that he's locked up for a while, he won't be able to make any more bad decisions for a long time. One of many bad choices was when he gave a child a very sharp katana. My dad had known that that he wouldn't have let me had it, so he tried to hide it. I still found it. I wish I would have let the katana slip from my mind, but I couldn't. It symbolized too much that I didn't know about yet, and it was too big of a mystery to let go of it. I searched every day for a couple of weeks until I found it hidden between the walls of my garage. There was a board nailed to the wall with about a 2-inch gap that had no purpose other than just to make the garage look cleaner. My dad had slid the katana inside the gap and put a bunch of power tools in front of it. I couldn't reach it, so I had to slowly move everything out to get back there. But once I found it, I was already in trouble. I was going down a bad path, and I never knew it until too late. My uncle loved his katana, but he knew he was going to jail. He told my dad that it was mine once I turned 12. He left it for me to remember him by. My uncle was on drugs when he gave me the katana. He thought a 12-year-old could handle the powerful sword. My dad knew I wouldn't be able to handle the sword until much later, but I found it too early. I found the sword when I turned 7. I never told anyone I found it, though. I would wait until my parents left for work. Then I would go into my tiny backyard and swing the large sword around. I would battle against gigantic armies and always was victorious. I thought this katana gave me unstoppable power, and when I held it, I felt like a ninja. I could run faster, jump farther, and could bring down an entire group of bad guys in one mighty swing. I felt totally in control, but I never was. Today was the day that Katie came over. She was 6 years old. She is 6 years old, and she is my best friend. She lives right down the road from me in a small yellow house. If I'm not at her house, she's at mine. She's like a sister that I wish I had. Katie coming over today was going to be special. I'm going to show her my new katana. I have been keeping it a secret from her because I wanted it all to myself. I can't take not telling her anymore, so I had her wait in my yard with her eyes closed. I ran into my backyard and pulled out the katana. I have never had it out before when my parents were home, so I'm really scared that I get caught. I think of showing Katie the katana. I think of how showing Katie the katana is more important than getting caught, so I do it anyways. I start my demonstration by showing it off. I keep pulling it almost out of the sheath and then putting it away. I do this over and over until I'm confident that she has seen every inch of the sword. I show her the small foreign language on the blade, the deadly curve of the blade, and we inspect the small handmade sheath. It has little pictures hand-painted by the original owner of the sword, and after I have shown her the sword completely, I start to swing it. I swung it over my head like an axe. I swung it around my head like they do in the movies, and I jab at imaginary enemies all around the yard. My biggest mistake was my ego. I thought I was the best, and nothing could go wrong. I was totally wrong. I decided to show how much control I had with the sword. I tell Katie to stand completely still in the middle of the yard. I start swinging the sword close to her. I swung it over my head by a couple of, I swung it over her head by a couple of inches. I brought the sword down right next to her arm by mere inches. I jabbed the sword at her with only an inch or two of space between the tip of my katana and her. At the end of my routine, I bring the sword down too close to her arm, and it digs into the side of her left forearm. It didn't go deep because it wasn't as sharp as I thought, but there was still a lot of blood. Lots of it. It covered her arm in it covered her lower arm in less than a minute. My mom came rushing outside the second she had heard the scream. She instantly called Kitty's mom, and we all drove up to the hospital together. She had to get 6 stitches in her arm to seal up the wound. I got lectured by my dad, who blamed himself for not hiding it better. I got lectured by my mom, who thought it was her fault because she wasn't watching us like she normally does. I got lectured by the cop at the hospital, who told me if I was older, I could have went to jail for what I did. I got lucky that Katie's mom didn't press charges against my parents, because my parents could have went to jail for not watching us properly. I got in a lot of trouble in the weeks that followed. My dad sold the katana so I would never find it again, but I don't think I could have ever picked it up after what I did. My mom told me I was grounded. I was grounded until I was 18, which only turned out to be less than a month after me being grounded. I couldn't see Katie for almost 2 months after she got home from the hospital. It was never the same as it was after what I did, though. That was the worst part. I never felt as close to her as I did before. After what I did, it's a wonder she even came over at all after that. I learned a very valuable lesson that day and in the days that followed. I learned that there is a reason behind everyone's actions. There is a reason my dad hid my katana from me. There is a reason behind everything my parents did. People tend to learn better from making a mistake on their own than they do when they are just being told something. That doesn't mean you should wait until you make a mistake before you learn. Everyone has done something they have to live with for the rest of their life, and they can pass their knowledge on to others if everyone would just listen. You can learn a lot by actually listening. You just have to step back and take a look at the bigger picture every once in a while. You have to think to yourself, why? Why would they do this? Why did they say that? Why does it matter? There's a reason behind it. You just have to find it. Thank you.